Okay, so for fluency, we need to find the sum of 15.6, 39.235, and 72. So we know that the word sum means to add. So when we add, we have to make sure we are lining up our digits and our decimal points based off of what we are given. So we have our 15.6. So always put the first number, then put your decimal point. The 9's in front, so the 9 goes in front of underneath the 5. The 3 in front of it, based off of because it's in the tens place value. Then the 2 in the tenths, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, so you can put a 0, since the 6 is in the tenths place value, put a 0 in the hundredths, thousandths, move it over a little bit, and then 10,000ths. Alright, so then you have 72, which the decimal point is always behind a whole number. So your 2 is technically in the ones place value, and the 7 is in the tens place value. And then to help yourself out, place zeros for the rest of the place values so you can stay in line when you begin to add up the numbers. Before I start adding, I got to drop my decimal point straight on down. So 0 plus 5 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 plus 0 is, oops, not 0. Why did I put a 0 there? 0 plus 5 plus 0, let's try that again, is 5. Phew. 0 plus 4 plus 0 is 4. 0 plus 3 plus 0 is 3. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 plus 0 is 8. 5 plus 9 is 14. 14 plus 2 is 16. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. Alright. So there's your answer for the sum. Now we have to find the quotient. Well, we know that quotient means that we are dividing. So we're going to divide 642 by 2. So our dividend is our first number and our divisor is our second number. So we set up our problem and we ask ourselves the question, how many times does 2 go into 6? So 2, 4, 6, that's 3 times. So my 3 goes above the 6 because that's what I'm going into. And then I do 3 times 2, which is 6, put it below the 6, and then I begin by subtracting, which 6 minus 6 gives me 0. And then I have to bring down the 4. So I bring down the 4. Alright? So now I got to ask myself, how many times does 2 go into 4? 2, 4. That's 2 times. And then I subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. And then I have to bring down the 2. So since I bring down the 2, 2 times what, or how many times 2 go into 2? Well, 2 times 1. So I put my 1, put my 2 below, and then I subtract. Again, you can go off the page. I still see it if it's off the page, okay? And then since I subtracted that, that's what gave me the 0. All right, so my answer is 321. Now I have to find what is the quotient. Quotient, again, means to divide, so we have to divide And we are putting our first number, which is our dividend, 9. And I'm actually going to move it up so I have more room. 9, 8, 6. And then 23 is my divisor. 23 is my divisor. So I got to ask myself, how many times does 23 go into 9? Well, 23 times 1 is 23, so I have to say 0 because it's too big. So then I have to put a 0 here. I would subtract. You would get 9. Okay, you would get 9 and you'd bring down your 8. So now you got to ask yourself, how many times does 23 go into 98 now? Well, this is where we want to put off to the side. This is a trial and error we have to do. Okay? So what I mean by that is it's a guess and check. I don't know right now what times 23 is going to get me close to 96. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try and figure it out. So on a scrap piece of paper, I'm going to do 23 times 1. And I know 23 times 1 equals 23. Then I'm going to do 23 times 2 on a scrap piece of paper. So 2 times 3 is 6. And 2 times 2 is 4. So 23 times 2 equals 46. All right, I want to get as close as I can to 98 without going over. So now I'm going to try 23 times 3 on a piece of paper. 23 times 3 on a scrap piece of paper equals 69. Then I have to do 23 times 4, which equals, and then on this scrap piece of paper, I'm going to write 23 times 4. So I do 23 times 4 on the piece of paper, and it gives me 92. All right, I'm going to do 23 times 5, just to say 5. On a piece of paper, 23 times 5 equals, let's see, 23 times 5 on my piece of paper equals 115. So, well, that's too high. So I'm going to go with, and let me make it a little bit wider for myself. I'm going to move it up here just so I have it for a piece of reference, and if I need to keep going, I can. So I want to do 92 is my goal. That's the one I want to get. That's the one I want to use. So I'm going to do 23 times 4. So I'm going to put my 4, and then I'm going to put 92 because 23 times 4 is 92. So I'm going to subtract that. And so I subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. 9 minus 9 is 0. And again, you guys will have enough zeros there. And then I have to bring down the 6. So I bring down my 6. And now I have to get close to 66. Well, going back to my multiplications, well, 23 times 3 is 69. That's too big. So I have to choose 2. So 2 times 23 equals 46. So I'm going to put my 4 and then my 6. And then I'm going to subtract. 6 minus 6 is 0. 6 minus 4 is 2. So I have 20. All right, well, 23 can't go into 20. So remember, I said you can always add zeros to the end of your number as your dividend. You can add zeros in there. So I always do 2 zeros so I can get to at least to the hundredths place value. So now I'm going to sit here and ask myself, and once I subtract, I forgot that you have to bring down your 0. So we're going to bring down the 0. So let's bring down this 0. So now we got to ask ourselves, how many times does 23 go into 200? well, I'm only at 5, and that's at 115. So I'm going to keep going with my list. So I'm going to do 23 times 6 and give myself what it equals. 23 times 6 on my scrap piece of paper is 138. I'm going to keep going until I at least get close to without going over. So 23 times 7 now on my scrap piece of paper is 161. Make this bigger. So I'm going to do 23 times 8. See what that equals on my piece of paper. Equals 184. And we'll just do 23 times 9 as well. 23 times 9 on my piece of paper is 207. So 207 is too big, so I'm looking at 23 times 8. But before I can put the 8 above here, I have to make sure I shoot that decimal straight up, so I make it go up. All right, so 8 times 23 is now what I got to do. So I put my 8, and that equals 184. So I'm going to put my 1, my 8, and then my 4. And then I'm going to subtract. Well, 0 minus 4 I can't do, so I got to take away from this 0. And then I can't take from that 0, so I got to take from the 2. So the 2 becomes a 1. The 0 that I had here would have became a 10, but to make the second 0 we have here a 10, I have to make it a 9. So now I'm doing 10 minus 4, which is 6. I'm going to push this down so you can see it. So I'm going to do 6. 9 minus 8 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. And then I'm going to bring down. Make sure I bring down my other 0. So I bring down my other 0. And again, you will have plenty of zeros. So I got to ask myself, how many times does 23 go into 160? Well, let's look. 7 is way too big. Not way too big, it's just 1 over. So we're going to have to use 6 again. So 6 times 23 gives me 138. So you put it below so you can see it. 1, 3, 8. All right, and then you're going to subtract that. Zero minus 8 I can't do, so the 6 becomes a 5, and the 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. And like I said, I always do 2 numbers after the decimal point so I can stop. If you wanted to, you could keep going, but right now our answer is 42.86.